Mr. Vaibhav is just handing a bouquet to our guest speaker. As you know, that our anniversary program is a arranged, scheduled program wherein we have Laksharchana, Rudrabhishekam, then we have bhajans, then we have Balvikas program, followed by a special talk by a special person. And this year, we are very fortunate to have Professor Ruchir Desai. He is an associate professor of commerce at Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning at Whitefield. A postgraduate in commerce and qualified cost accountant, Sri Desai joined the faculty of Sathya Sai Institute at Vrindavan campus immediately after completing his post-graduation from Bhagwan's University. He is a gold medalist for both his Bachelor of Commerce and Master of Commerce degrees. He has been teaching a wide range of subjects to the undergraduate as well as postgraduate students in the university for more than 3 decades now. The range of subjects handled by him: financial accounting, cost accounting, taxation, security analysis, portfolio management, mergers and acquisitions, and financial management, among others. He is also the recipient of the first Sai Krishna Award for the best teacher in Sri Sathya Sai System of Integrated Education. Having spent more than 3 decades at Sri Bhagwan's lotus feet, first as a student and then as a faculty member in Bhagwan's education institutions, he has actually participated in all the programs and projects of Bhagwan. An avid reader and a good orator, Sri Ruchir Desai has delivered a number of talks in Bhagwan's presence as well as at other gatherings in Prashanti Nilayam, Bangalore, Kodaikanal, Mumbai, Japan, Sri Lanka, United Kingdom, among other places and locations. His main interests, apart from teaching, are reading, writing, and community service. We are very fortunate to have you, sir, today amongst our group, and we hope to gain from your knowledgeable insights and learnings which you have got at Sri Bhagwan's feet for us to learn and understand. I hand over the mic to Professor Ruchir.
With pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet and Sairam to all the distinguished elders present here and to all the dear and loving Balvikas students who gave us such a beautiful performance this morning. I heard that even before I came you had a range of activities starting with Laksharchan, Bhajan, and then this very beautiful program by the Balvikas children. And I'm feeling slightly out of place coming and speaking after so many nice activities which go on. I'm also told that this is the 49th anniversary of the Sri Sathya Sai Study Circle or this Samiti. And it was very, very heartening to note that 49 years ago Swami had come to this area and inaugurated this and named this as the Sri Sathya Sai Study Circle. All of you are indeed blessed to be part of a unit which Swami has started, and a unit which is flourishing because Swami flagged it off. It's flourishing because of your devotion and the time and energy that you spend in that. Looking at this beautiful program that we just saw, I was reminded of an incident which happened many, many years ago, maybe about 30 years ago in Prashanti Nilayam. At that time, one evening, Swami got ice cream distributed to all the students who were sitting in the mandir for his darshan. I hope I'm not putting the organizers in a spot by talking about distribution of ice cream. So here were the students sitting, and there was this long-standing devotee whom some of the senior members of this audience might have seen or heard about. The ice cream company was a company called Joy Ice Cream, and this gentleman ran this Joy Ice Cream company, and he had come with a few boxes of ice cream. So this was, Swami immediately asked for this ice cream to be distributed among the students. So ice cream was given, and then students were wondering what to do, because there's this ice cream cup in hand and there's Swami standing there. So what do you do? But Swami said, no, eat the ice cream, eat the ice cream. Students were just waiting for that. So as soon as they got the signal to eat the ice cream, they all happily started, they opened the cups and started eating the ice cream. Naturally, as expected, everybody was busy in the ice cream and Swami was forgotten. Doesn't happen to kids. I think it happens to all of us. Happens even to elders. Kids forget God when they see ice cream. We forget God when we see the glittering world around us. So here were these children busy with the ice cream, and Swami started going round, and he asked one of the boys there, what is God like? This boy looked up, suddenly saw Swami there, and then Swami asked him, what is God like? This boy was so busy enjoying his ice cream, he couldn't even think of an answer. And in the midst of that ice cream, you are eating ice cream, enjoying that ice cream, and here is someone asking you, what is God like? You want to think of God when you're in trouble, not when you're eating ice cream. So, no answer. He looked up, blinked at Swami. He was not sure whether he heard right. Swami asking him, what is God like? Swami moved a few steps. Another student who didn't know, because this boy was sitting maybe 10 steps away. So he didn't know what that previous exchange was between Swami and the other boy. Swami again bent down and asked this boy, what is God like? It was this boy's turn to be bewildered. Once again, no answer. Swami went ahead, once again picked on the third student, asked him the same question. What is God like? This boy was slightly smarter than the first two and tried to think of some answer. Quickly stuttered some answer. By which time, because Swami was going round, many students were halfway or had finished their cups. An ice cream cup finishes very, very quickly. It's always small in size. So they had finished their ice cream cups and they had started looking up. And Swami, the teacher that he always is, said, you know what God is like? That now he had caught the attention of all the students. So you know what God is like? God is like ice cream. Everybody wondered, what's the relationship between God and ice cream? And Swami said, God is sweet like ice cream. Everybody was wondering. And Swami continued, God is soft like ice cream. He again continued, God is cool like ice cream. Everybody was marveling at this wonderful answer which only Swami could have thought of. God is sweet like ice cream. God is soft like ice cream. God is cool like ice cream. But then came the punchline. God is joy like ice cream. Here was this joy ice cream. Reminds me of what Ramakrishna Paramahamsa once said. It is always God who can make complicated things simple. Complicated things so simple that even children can understand them. So that was Swami. When among children, I am a child. And that is what attracted all of us when we were students, we were young. It attracted us to Swami. Because Swami was what he was. When he was with you, he was what you were. If you were a child, he was childlike. If you were simple, he was simple. If you were listening to him, he would teach you. the deepest things in the simplest of ways. Let me narrate another incident which I was a witness to, or rather, I was not a witness to, I was a participant in. I was a student. This was somewhere around 1980s, beginning of 1980s. And I was a student studying in the college over here in Vrindavan. It was, one of those times when you are depressed. I was passing through a phase where I was feeling very unhappy, very depressed. When you are depressed, you look at everything negatively. Anything that happens, you feel is going against you. And when Swami was there, Swami used to talk to us so regularly. So not a day would pass when Swami might have not spoken to me. And here was Swami, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days over, and he's not spoken. So that adds to the depression. Not only is the whole world against me, even Swami seems to have abandoned me. So I was feeling very crestfallen. And we were present in a room. There were some 15-20 of us, students and a few teachers. And Swami was sitting. And I was standing maybe a few feet away. And suddenly Swami looked at me and asked me, what is the distance between here and here? Once again, just like the question about the ice cream, how is God like? What is God like? This was it was a bolt out of the blue. Swami was talking about so many things, paused, then he looks at me and asks me, what is the distance between here and here? He's pointing to where I am standing. So he's pointing to me, or rather to the place where I am standing. And he asks, what is the distance between here and here? I really wondered. Because it was a very unusual question. So I was not sure whether I heard Swami right. I was not sure what my answer should be. I was in fact trying to, like all adults as we grow up, we always try and find a hidden meaning in something. There must be something else which Swami is trying to ask. So I thought I was being smart and trying to find out what the question really was. So I kept on wondering, what is it that Swami must be meaning? What is the answer I must give? So I couldn't answer. Then Swami again repeated. In fact, he was repeating for the third time. What is the distance between here? That irritation was visible in his voice. What is the distance between here and here? So finally I blurted out, I looked at, I said, Swami, 3 feet. Because I couldn't think of any other answer. So he kept looking at me and said 3 feet. So I thought maybe my measurements are wrong. So I said, Swami, 3.5 feet. So he said, the distance between here and here is 3.5 feet. I said, I think so, Swami. What is the distance between here and here? Now he pointed to his feet and said, what is the distance between here and here? Here and there. This was even more foxing. So I wondered. Finally I said, Swami, 3.5 feet. Then he drove home a very important lesson in very, very simple words. He said, if the distance between there and here is 3.5 feet, the distance between here and there is also 3.5 feet. As far as you think you are, you are. If you think you are near, you are near. Come to think of it, it's a very profound lesson. It's a very, very deep lesson which 30 years later or 35 years later after that incident happened, probably I have not internalized. It's a lesson which we all need to internalize. God is as far away as you think He is. If you think He is near, He is near. But then, the beauty is that this lesson was not given to me. Understanding that I am still a student, understanding that I do not have the profundity of knowledge which a learned scholar would claim to possess. He put it not merely to me but to all the others present in that room in such simple terms that lesson went home, and I can still imagine, I can still visualize that situation in front of my mind's eye. God is as close as you think He is. God is as far as you think He is. That was the beauty of Swami, the universal teacher that he was. He would always teach in very simple language. He would always teach in ways in which we can understand, in ways in which the message would go home. But the profundity of the message was such that years later we might still be trying to understand and unravel that message. But before I become more complicated, as Ramakrishna said and I quoted earlier, it's God alone who can make the most complicated things simple. And in order to keep my talk simple today, I'm going to probably ask my younger brothers and sisters who are sitting here, the kids, what do you think of Swami? What is Swami for you? Something other than God. Because God is something so abstract. God is something sometimes a little frightening, right? So what is God? A person different than a human? Okay. Something more specific, something more concrete? Yeah? No one else wants to try? Sit.
God is always perfect, but we can't be perfect.
God is always perfect, but we can't be perfect. Okay. Any other attempts? No? God is truthful. Okay. God is Baba. Yeah. That's a very nice answer. And I wish I had that realization when I was your age. You are very lucky at that age you are able to point to Swami and say that's God. Anyone else? Yeah. No? I saw a label called time and I thought he was going to say God is timeless. Yes? Raising your hand. Tell us what you think. Whenever I've asked that question in different audiences, one common answer which maybe I didn't get today because people, yeah? God is all powerful, we don't have all power. God is someone who teaches us good things.
God is the person who gives us happiness.
God is someone who gives us happiness. And how does He give us happiness?
By making things easy.
By making things easy. He's never direct.
Every time helps us.
He every time helps us. He doesn't harm us. Okay, talking about how God helps us every time. He helps us. Typically the difference between God and human beings is we help ourselves. God helps others. God helps us. God is behind me. Yes, it's God who's behind me and that is the God which is giving me the strength to speak. So, God is someone who helps us. God is someone who teaches us and teaches us that the best part of our life is when we help others and not merely help ourselves. Okay. I'm reminded of an incident which happened probably a little more than 10 years ago. 10, 12, yeah, it was I think 2004. 12, 13 years ago. Swami was in Vrindavan. He had come from Parthi and my mother was here. She had come in from Bombay. She was in Parthi. When I went to Parthi, I think that was for Shivratri, And my mother started telling me that, she's feeling a little heaviness in the chest. When she walks, she feels a little breathless. When she climbs a slope, she needs to pause sometimes. Typically any educated person will say that these are the typical symptoms of a heart problem. She knew it. I also understood it. I said okay, but fortunately we had learned only one remedy, and that is whatever happens, put it to Swami. So I said fine, I'll try and ask Swami what to do. You don't run to a doctor, you ask Swami. Swami is everything for you. So you ask Swami. So I said I'll try and put the problem to Swami and then see what Swami says. We'll do as whatever Swami says. I was in Patti only for a couple of days, and that was Shivratri festival, so I didn't get a chance to ask Swami. But luckily, within a few days after Shivratri, Swami came to Vrindavan. So Swami came to Vrindavan, so my mother also followed, and she was staying in the ashram. There are so many rooms there in the ashram, and she was staying in one of those rooms. And now I was all waiting for an opportunity to ask Swami. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed, and typical of Swami, I didn't get an opportunity to ask Swami. Swami would pass by me, Swami would look at me, Swami would smile at me, but didn't give me a chance to ask. Swami would talk to me, but didn't give me a chance to talk or ask something to him. If he would ask me something, I would reply to that, but the moment I finished my reply, he wouldn't give me a chance to say something more, and he would go away. Few days passed like that, and now I was getting exasperated. Swami's been here for more than a week, and I've not been able to ask. I've not done anything for my mother as a son. I've always been here. Last 30 odd years I've been here at least. Now that she's got a problem, I need to be able to attend to that problem. I need to be able to help her. So I should be able to at least convey this to Swami, but it was not happening. Finally, one day afternoon, there was some work, and I was in Swami's presence. Once that work got over, and there was nobody else in the room, there was another elderly gentleman and myself. So, and there was silence. So I said, Swami. He looked at me and said, Yemi. I said, Swami, mother is saying that. I started. I was halfway through the sentence saying, mother is saying that she has got a chest. I came up to the chest, and I would speak to Swami in my broken Telugu. Okay, because I picked up Telugu listening to Swami's discourses. Okay, I don't know Kannada because I just picked up a smattering of Kannada, staying here for so many years. So I would speak to Swami in a broken Telugu, a little bit of Hindi would come out. Okay, and that was fine. It's been going on for years. So in my broken Telugu, I said, Swami, mother ko chest. By the time I couldn't finish the sentence, by the time I came saying mother is having chest, he just said, Yemi ledu. I have not been able to tell him what it is, and he's saying Yemi ledu. He said Yemi ledu, and for a minute, there was silence. I also paused. Then I said, no Swami, she is saying that when she walks. Actually what had happened was, in that 1 week, when Swami was there, the doctors from the super specialty hospital also would come for darshan. There's a particular cardiologist from the super specialty hospital which some of you might have seen, heard or known of or interacted with, one Dr. Dash. He's supposed to be a senior doctor there. So he used to come for darshan. So one day I met Dr. Dash and I told him, I said, Doctor, this is what is happening, this is what. So immediately he said, yeah, this is typical. What's her age? I said, she is about 74 now. She said, yeah, then you bring her to the hospital. I said, no, I'm not going to bring her to the hospital. I'll first tell Swami, but she said, yeah, these are typical symptoms of, she must be having some blockages, which is why this is happening. So I had already spoken to Dr. Dash and got this thing from him. So he was very clear that these are the beginning symptoms of. So I said, Swami, not like that. When she climbs or this thing, she feels heaviness. Em parvaledu this time. Again, he didn't allow me to complete, and said, Em parvaledu. So again I waited, I'm wondering what to do. But no, at times we become pretty stupid. Or maybe I won't be very wrong in saying that we are usually stupid when it comes to God, but at times we even show it. So here was one occasion when I manifested my stupidity. I continued. I said, Swami, I spoke to Dr. Dash and I told him that what my mother was saying. I just came up to that. I couldn't complete the sentence. Now I was talking to Swami in English because I wanted to be more fluent and tell. So I was talking in English. I said, Swami, I spoke to Dr. Dash and I told Dr. Dash and he says, came up to what he says. And Swami wanted to complete. Doctors urke cheptaru. I hope there's no doctor here. So, doctors urke cheptaru. Doctors would simply tell. Now what? I had gone with the determination that determination was becoming stronger by the day. 10 days Swami was in Vrindavan, I hadn't got an opportunity to tell Swami. And the beauty is in those 10 days I had spoken to Swami so many times, or rather Swami had spoken to me so many times. But despite all those interactions, I hadn't got a chance to tell Swami. So I was determined I am going to tell. I should have taken the hint. When he's saying no problem, when he's saying parvaledu, when he's saying doctors cheptaru, I should have taken the hint to drop it. Okay, I should have in fact understood that that's his answer. It's not that he is saying, he's trying to shut me down. That's the answer that he is giving to my problem. But such times, no. You want an answer from God and you want an answer from God in a language which suits you. That's typical of us human beings, especially elders. So here I was a mature adult. I wanted an answer from God in the language which I understood. I wanted an answer from God which suited me. So I pestered. Now here, third time this happened, Doctor Urke Cheptaru. So then I decided, I said, this is not going to, how dare Swami keep interrupting me, I have to tell him. So this time I started off. Atlakadu Swami, and I, it's like a family member when somebody in the house, it could be an adult, it could be somebody of your age, tells you, no, not like that, it's like this, and you decide to tell your story. So that was literally the way in which I, Atlakadu Swami, and Swami looked at me like that, but it didn't strike me that there's something strange, there's something wrong which is happening. I decided to narrate my whole story. And Swami, perhaps he was momentarily taken aback. He shouldn't have been taken aback knowing my nature, but he was probably taken aback. How come this guy claims that he stayed with me for a quarter of a century but can be so stupid? How come this guy who thinks he knows me, he's a teacher, he's a professor in my institute, but hasn't even understood this much of me? So he allowed me to complete my whole story. So this time he didn't interrupt me. I was happy he's listening to me. And I completed whatever I had planned to say, I said. So I explained the whole thing, described all the situation, whatever my mother was saying, what doctor said, and whatever, 2 minutes, 3 minutes I must have spoken. Swami kept quiet, listened patiently. Finally when I stopped, he was still like that, Anything more you have to say? He didn't say that, but that look was there. Anything more you have to say? I had finished. Whatever I had to say, I said, I exhausted. So now I was looking at Swami. So finally Swami said, okay, this guy is not going to understand, this guy, he's got a thick skull. So very patiently, very sweetly he said, don't worry, nothing is there. But anyway, you go to the hospital, meet Dr. Dash tomorrow and get a checkup done. That was more like a sympathetic, anyway you go, since you seem to be keen on that, you go and do that. Fine. I was not happy that he told me to go to the hospital. I was happy that I have put the problem to Swami. I have told him what he is telling me I am going to do. That was all that my aim was. So the matter, I thought, ended there. But there's a side to the story which probably I'll come to later. In the evening, we sat for bhajan, and after the bhajan was over, suddenly I find that I had seen Dr. Dash earlier. Before bhajan I had seen him. So I was looking in the crowd, where is he? Because Swami said go tomorrow to the hospital and meet Dr. Dash and get it checked up. So I was looking, if I can spot Dr. Dash, I can tell him that I'm going to come tomorrow. Shall I come tomorrow? Next day he's not there, or he's busy, or he's got some operations, whatever. So I thought I'll ask him. So I was looking, and suddenly one student keeps running, he comes running, searching, as if he's searching for somebody, and then he suddenly sees me and comes running to me. Sir, Dr. Dash is looking for you. And he literally pulls me and takes me to where Dr. Dash was. Dr. Dash was also looking around, looking for me. So he must have told this boy something, where is Ruchir? So he said, what time are you coming tomorrow? What time will you come? Will you come by 8:30? I said, sir, I was supposed to ask you that. He said, no, just now Swami told me that you are going to come to the hospital tomorrow. So please come by 8:30. I said, fine. We went to the hospital. Okay. And then I realized, if I had taken that first hint which Swami was saying, Yem Ledu, everything would have been fine. We spent the whole day in the hospital undergoing one test after another. As if that was not enough, he said, tomorrow morning you must come on fasting. And then there are some more tests to be done. Second day again we spent some 4, 5, 6 hours in the hospital. And then he said, tomorrow morning I have to do this test. So third day morning again. It was on the third day that I realized that maybe I should have, listened to Swami, taken the hint, then we wouldn't have had these hospital trips for 3 days. Okay, hoping that there's no doctor present here. I think the worst thing that can happen to you is making trips to the hospital and meeting doctors. But anyway, we couldn't help it. I had put myself in the hands of a doctor rather than keep myself in the hands of Swami. But to make a long story short, at the end of the third day, Dr. Dash said, evening reports will be ready. So evening it might be late, I'm not sure. Tomorrow morning you come. So this time I asked, thank you. This time I asked him, I said, sir, do I have to bring my mother? Because when I was tired, she would have been, no, no need to bring your mother, you come. We'll look at the reports, we'll discuss. And then we'll see. When I come to the ashram for darshan, at that time again I can talk to your mother if required. So we'll see. You just come and meet me tomorrow morning. Fine. Before that tomorrow morning could come, that day night, Swami had a fall. And he had a fall and he had injured his right shoulder. I don't know how many of you are aware, at that time Swami he didn't give darshan for about 10 days or little more than 10 days. And next day morning there was no darshan. Because there was no darshan, everybody was wondering what had happened, etc., etc. In all that confusion, I naturally didn't think of going to the hospital. The idea did come to my mind saying I'm supposed to go and meet Dr. Dash, but then that can wait. I said I'll meet Dr. Dash later. Okay, this is, naturally this is something which is staring at you. So finally in the afternoon I was wondering, Dr. Dash might have waited for me, so I called up the hospital. I called up one of our students working in the hospital and I told him, I said just go to Dr. Dash and tell him that I couldn't come today, I'll meet him later. Swami had a fall. Swami had stopped giving darshan. His right shoulder was dislocated. For many days he was confined to his room. Almost a week after that, one day we heard that we had heard that Swami was confined to his room, that he was not stepping out of his room, he was not coming down, etc. Nobody was having darshan. The message was, there was an announcement saying devotees can go home. Swami is not going to give darshan for the next few days. Okay, so people would just assemble in the hall, have bhajans in the morning, bhajans in the evening, and disperse. The crowds had reduced. It was the month of May. So even in the college, the students had gone home. Few students were there and us teachers were there. So there were some 15-20 people there. living in the hostel, students and teachers, not too many. So there was no darshan. Morning, evening, we would sit, we would do bhajan, we would disperse. It so happened that after a day or two, Dr. Dash came and he said, if you come, we'll discuss. I said, sir, whatever it is, we have to tell Swami. He said, yeah, we have to tell Swami. I said, I also have to tell Swami. He said, I would also like to tell Swami because Swami has referred the patient to me. So we'll see after Swami is fine. I said, yes, doctor, that's the best. We'll see after Swami is fine. So this matter was pushed aside. Finally, one day, it was about maybe 7-8 days later, we heard that Swami had come down. Swami's room was on the first floor of Trai Vrindavan. And we heard that Swami had come down. So that means Swami is much better. And then there was an announcement, or rather, we had heard the news that Swami is going to give darshan on Ishwaramma Day. 6th of May, it was coming within a few days. Swami is going to give darshan on Ishwaramma Day to everybody. So that is good news, which means Swami is getting better. Swami has come down. So next day morning I thought, if yesterday Swami has come down, today definitely he will come down. So typically he would come down in the afternoon. So I took a chance and somewhere around 2:30 in the afternoon, I went into Trai Vrindavan from the back door. When I went in, I found that there were a couple of elders who had already come in, and Swami had come down. Swami was sitting in a room which we call the interview room. That's a room where he used to give interviews to people. Swami was sitting in the interview room and talking to these people. So there were a couple of elders there, Mr. Gangadhar Shetty and one or two others were there, and Swami was talking to them. So there's a round hall in the center of Trai. So I decided I'll wait in that round hall. You can't barge into a room where Swami is talking to some people. Having come there, having taken the liberty or having made another mistake by coming there. Okay, probably as I continue, you'll realize why I'm saying mistake. I thought, okay, let me stand there. My intention in going there was to have Swami's darshan. You've not had Swami's darshan for a week. Swami is in Vrindavan, you are concerned. It's like, a family member is sick, you go to see a family member. So I said, just see Swami. So I stood there in a corner of that round hall. I said, Swami comes, I'll just see Swami. Not that I want to talk to Swami or something. A few minutes later, Swami comes out of the room. And that was when I realized, I wish I wouldn't have been there. Swami had his hand strapped on like this, covered with a shawl. Those of you who have seen Swami or seen Swami's videos or even photographs, he has a long flowing robe. That long flowing robe can trip anybody. Which is why even during darshan very often Swami would catch his robe like that. So here was Swami with one hand tight, literally strapped on like that, paining. With the other hand he can't walk, he has difficulty walking because of that. There is that rope which he is afraid of tripping. There is somebody trying to hold Swami's hand. So left hand, somebody is trying to hold Swami's hand, Swami is giving his hand, taking it away. Fiercely independent that he was, he never took help or support from anyone. He supported everyone his whole life. He even does it even today. As my wise young friend said, he is behind me, backing me. So, fiercely independent that he is, he wouldn't want to take help. So there was this very odd scene. Swami whom we've known, whom we've adored, whom we've looked up to, shuffling around. Lot of difficulty in walking. You can make out that the person is in pain, can hardly walk, and slowly hobbling forward. That was when I wished. I said I shouldn't have been here. Anyway, I stood. In fact, I pressed myself as much against the wall as I could, thinking that Swami pass. But then it's a round hall, not a very huge hall. So naturally when Swami moved forward, maybe he came to around 7-8 feet from me, he would have naturally noticed that there is some object there other than the wall. So he looked like that and he saw me. He saw me and there was that slight flicker of recognition in his eyes. So seeing that flicker of recognition in his eyes, I moved forward and I ventured to ask Swami, how is Swami? Swami etla unnaru? I ventured to ask, but before I could finish my question, believe it or not, Swami looks at me, and what comes out from his mouth? How is your mother? He looks at me and says, how is your mother? When my young friend said Swami always helps people, that is when I thought, let me narrate this incident. When I saw that wonderful program in the morning, when I saw all my younger Balvikas, brothers and sisters, I thought, let me just narrate some incidents to you. Okay, rather than talk philosophy which I myself might not have internalized. That's what any learned speaker is supposed to do. But then very often we talk philosophy, we talk of Swami's teachings to tell people that we are learned. We don't talk Swami's teachings because we follow those teachings. We don't talk philosophy because we want to convey that philosophy, we want to teach that philosophy to people. We talk that philosophy, like I said earlier, only to tell everyone that I am learned. But that kind of philosophy, in Swami's words, Swami used to pun on the word philosophy and call it full loss. So philosophy is full loss. So if I were to talk philosophy today, it would be a full loss. Anyway, coming back to this incident. So here I am trying to ask Swami etla unnaru, and he looks at me and says, how is your mother? Before I can reply, what did Dr. Dash say? It's like one more bouncer hitting you. What did Dr. Dash say? I'm wondering what to say. Did you go to the hospital? I'm wondering whether to say yes or no or what. Em chepparu doctor. Again he repeated, Em chepparu doctor. I couldn't answer. Finally, I answered in the only language which human beings have learnt to protect themselves, and that is the language of tears. Tears just came out of my eyes, and finally I told Swami, I said, Swami, I didn't come for that. I just came to see how Swami is. I have not seen Swami for 10 days. Swami is in Vrindavan. I learned that Swami has come down, so I just came to see how Swami is. Kadu. Mother ko treatment shuru ainde. Has your mother's treatment started? So if you say God is love, if you say God helps others, I have not come across a better example of that in my own life than this incident. Years later, I remember in Puttaparthi, somebody telling Swami, when Swami had already started giving darshan in a wheelchair, when Swami used to sit in a chair and be wheeled around giving darshan. That was when something similar happened. Swami was going around. Of course, he was not in such obvious pain and he was not in such a situation. He was going around in darshan. Then somebody asked Swami, a long-standing devotee, a very old devotee, who's from the US, he happened to be sitting in the portico, and I just overheard this conversation because he was sitting a few steps away from where I was sitting. So as Swami's chair came, Swami saw him and the chair went towards him. So he asked something to Swami, and Swami in turn asked him about one of his family members, how is so and so. He was not well. So this gentleman tells Swami, Swami, you yourself are in so much of difficulty. Swami, you are in a chair, and Swami, you are first asking about others. And Swami's reply was very, very revealing. He said, when you think of others, when you think of others' problems, your own pain goes away. So that was a lesson which again was very, very revealing. Life indeed is worth living, not when you are living it for yourself. Life is worth living only when you live it for someone else. Swami didn't say so. He lived his life that way and showed all of us. Despite being in whatever physical pain, Despite undergoing whatever physical troubles, his life, right from his childhood, was always for others. My life is my message is not something which is a dictum which he said, it's not something which a slogan which he came out with. Our politicians come out with many slogans. This was not a slogan. Help ever, hurt never was not a slogan. God is love, live in love was not a slogan. These were all messages which he lived every single moment of his life and taught us by living every single moment in his life. We have to learn the lessons of his life by following his life. We have to learn and put those lessons into practice in our own life, because he has not gone anywhere. He is still with us. Some of you might say that you were lucky. You were there at a time when you could live your life along with Swami. My younger brothers and sisters will say, we've not seen Swami, or we've just about seen Swami, but we have no concrete memories of Swami. For us, Swami is a photograph. Swami is not a photograph. Swami is a living presence. We need to draw inspiration from the way in which he lived his life. And remember, we don't live our life in a different way because he is not with us physically. We need to continue to lead our life in the same way that we would lead when he was here with us 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago when we saw Swami. We lived a certain life because he was around. We lived a certain life maybe because we were afraid of him. We lived a certain life because he prescribed it. Since he's not gone anywhere, we must continue to live the life. We must continue to follow his teachings. And to all those who ask, especially to the young crowd who asks me what his teachings are, I would say in one simple language, behave in a way which Swami would approve. Conduct yourself in a way which would meet Swami's approval. If there is anything that I do, would Swami approve of it? If anything I can do, can I with a straight face tell Swami that I did it? It may be before Swami's picture, before Swami's photograph. But can I go and sit before Swami's photograph and tell Swami, this is what I did? Can I, if Swami were to know what I did, and he does know, if Swami were to know what I did, would he approve of that? If Swami would approve of that, that is how I must conduct myself. Truth is what I can share with Swami. Right conduct is conduct which will meet his approval. These are the benchmarks that we need to carry forward in our life. With these few words, I'll stop. I think you've had a rather long innings this morning. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come and share my thoughts with us. Sai Ram.